Okay, so I thought it'd be interesting to do a look at the 1911 England and Wales census, and I've chosen my 3 times great-grandmother, Agnes Blackmore Fry. Now I'm in Ancestry, you can see, in my tree. If I show you Agnes, the reason why it's interesting here is because she lived through all of the modern censuses available for England and Wales on Ancestry. Unfortunately, she died in 1915. I mean, she lived to 95, as you can probably see, so she had a grand old life. The 1921 census is only currently available on Find My Past anyway. So she's available, or she's listed in every census on Ancestry. So let's have a look and let's see the 1911 census. So if I click into the name, and I'll just show you, I've got the photo. So let's have a look at the photo just so you can see who we're looking at. I'm still amazed I've got these photos of her. There she is in the middle, and we can see here, this is relevant for in a moment, W.H. Batten, B-A-T-T-E-N, 4 Oxford Grove, Ilfracombe in North Devon in England. And I don't know if maybe this lady is my great-great-grandmother, her daughter, I'm not sure, but you can clearly see this in a photography studio, and it was in Ilfracombe. It's pretty amazing. I can know exactly where it is. It's a shame about the quality of the print. I only have an old computer printout from somebody else that was then photocopied, etc. So really low quality. I have no idea where the original photo is. I don't even know in the family who owns it. So I'm still happy I've got this. I'm dating this around maybe 1870s. It's a long way back. Maybe 1880s, but her daughters were more or less married by the 1880s. So let's see. And got some notations which confirms what I was saying, and here she is again. Now this is my great uncle. This is one thing I do know. This is my great uncle who was born in 1910. She died in 1915, so this is probably 1911 because he's still, look, a very little baby, and looks a bit like a photography studio again, I suspect. Now this is my great grandmother, and this is my great-great-grandmother. Okay, so this is her daughter and her granddaughter, great-grandson. I suspect they took the baby over to see the family in North Devon because they lived in Neath in South Wales, and you could get a ferry in those days across the water. So again, this is, I know the date of this. I think, yeah, it's around 1910, right? 1911, and it has to be after 1910 or a date in 1910 because of my Uncle Harry's birthday. So now, let's get into the records. When you come into Ancestry on your person, you can go to Facts, and I think if you're going to do it naturally, you generally work backwards on censuses. I mean, there's maybe a bit more random than that, but a census is generally you're working backwards when you're finding records for the first time. Now, I've found a lot of these, but if you don't see them, they'll often appear in the hints. So maybe we'll come through the hints in a moment, but you can see we've got some census information appearing in the hints there. But let's have a look at the 1911 census. And it says here, for some reason it doesn't say census, it just says residence. So if I click on it, and you could see it links back up into this column, and it's got Ancestry sources collated here in the sources column. So let's have a view of that. And you get a bit of a profile, takes it out, and you can see there's a typo here, but let's not worry because it has found her correctly. Okay, so if I have a look at the image straight away, and we've got our census. Now if I press this film strip icon, this is quite nice in Ancestry to view the censuses, because then you can come over. Don't ask me why it's on the next page, because this was the cover. And if you click on that, then you can see the cover page. So, England and Wales census, the schedule. Mr. G.K. Batten. Now, if you remember, the photographer was a W.H. Batten, so there's a family connection there instantly. And this was his son-in-law's, possibly brother, possibly grandson, not sure. And you can see 1 St. James's Place, Ilfracombe. So let me just show you where that is. Again, to bring it to life a bit, if I can type. And I like to do this when I'm looking at the census records to really just make it feel like I'm there, you know. And interestingly, I've been to Ilfracombe recently and I didn't realise that she actually was living in this place at this time. So you can see the sign there, St James's Place, and number 3, you can actually see 3, so Rocky Cove, bed and breakfast must be 2, and what was a cafe, I've seen since, it's not there now, is at number 1. But I mean, look at that. There's a beach down here, the town is over here, the church she helped to build is over here. I walked past this and I didn't even realise. So it's really useful to do this. So we've got 1 St James's Place. Now I might, if I go to my search, if I do directions, I'm going to leave that open so I can come back and let's start to draw that picture. You can see it's come out to, this is where I was. The family lived over here. Her daughter moved over to Neath, and there was a straight shot ferry across the water. If I zoom in on Ilfracombe, right on the coast, fantastic spot and a very popular tourist destination today. Now let's go back across into the record. Okay, so we've got our heading, we know what we're looking at. Now before I get into the details, let's just have a look down the extra information down here. Now the enumerator was the person who tallied things up and added to the records. And you can see you've got 3 males, 4 females, 7 persons in the house. And that confirms the number of rooms in writing there. And over here, you can see the signature of the head of the household. So I know this is George Kevin Batten, GK Batten. And the postal address is Norfolk House, Ilfracombe. So interestingly, you see an extra bit of information there that isn't actually elsewhere on the census. So if I do this and I press that in Ancestry, maybe I will close my film strip view. This is nice because then I can see the transcription. So if it's highlighted my great-great-grandmother, my person of interest, instantly, which is good. The typo is still there. We'll have a look at that in a moment. And you can see Agnes Blackmore. Barrett it says, but actually also Barnes, because somebody submitted that as a correction. Great. And you can see if I click someone else, then it also selects them on the screen, so it corresponds. But this is a very good way of seeing, especially when you've got older censuses, I will look at soon. You can see instantly where they are. But if you notice, down here it actually says, yeah, Norfolk House, which on the cover it didn't. Right, so it's combined postal address Norfolk House, Ilfracombe, with the cover, which just says 1 St James's Place. But that's a really useful bit of information because sometimes, as you can see, he's only filled in Norfolk House. He hasn't put the number, but the government obviously wanted 1 St James's Place. Combining them, you've got even more, as has been done here. So that's a very handy thing. So I can have a look. I can see obviously it's row 7, it corresponds. Get a bit of practice reading the lettering or the handwriting. Interesting, she's down as a grandmother when she was not the grandmother to the head of the household. But, you know, there's all kinds of these little things on Ancestry. She's the grandmother to the children. But, hey, and she's 91. As I said, she lived to 95. She's listed as a widow. And she doesn't have an occupation, understandably. Surprised they didn't write retired, but hey. And it's got, then if we come over into this far corner here, or the far column, let me zoom out a little. I'll pull this down actually. You can adjust that as you need. We've got birthplace, nationality and infirmity. Now, they haven't filled in this. There's a code here that someone else has added. I assume because it's obvious, right? Saltash, Cornwall, Ilfracombe, Devon, all the way down, and then Agnes was born in Padstow, Cornwall, which is relevant because that's also a harbour town, just like Ilfracombe, as I'll come on to later. And let's just have a look at the others in the household to get an idea. I mean, we can follow it across, right? George Kevin Batten, head, 48. Matilda Fry Barnes, wife, 48. Kevin Batten, son, okay, he's taking his middle name, 23, single. Agnes Fry Batten, so she's got her name because Agnes Blackmore Barnes was born Agnes Blackmore Fry, so that's significant. 20 and single. Hilda May Batten, 18 and single. Adrian George Batten, 6. And if we look over at the occupations, he was a photographer as well. So we saw, I come back over to, let's go back. You can get lost in these back buttons on Ancestry. And we saw then that this was W.H. Batten. Okay, so he's got a photography studio. So it's clearly some kind of family business of photography there. All these little bits of information are nice to add up, aren't they? Right, so photographer, he's an employer. And interestingly, it's got under his wife's name, Matilda Fry Batten, just no occupation. Thought they might have put that, but hey. And also it only puts for her the completed years present in the marriage. So they've been married for 24 years. Instantly know then that they got married. My math is going to fail me now, isn't it? What, 1886? No, 1887. Yeah, so they got married in 1887 roughly. Okay, and this is interesting. I suppose this is a sign of the times, really. Total children born alive. I guess they're distinguishing between that and maybe stillbirths. I'm not really sure. It's a bit odd because then in the next column, still living. If you know more in the comments, please do tell me. Okay, do tell me and share with everyone. And then children who have died, 1. So we don't know who has died from this, unfortunately, but no doubt we can find out elsewhere. That might be worth adding a child to their record, because if the child died under the age of 10, they might not feature in any census. So that's always worth doing. If you see something like this, add them to the tree, just without a date, without a name, anything, just the surname, and you might find them through hints. That's always helpful. So another thing I would suggest, right, with your census records, because if, like me, you let your Ancestry subscription come and go, because I don't use it consistently these days, for reasons I'll explain in another video, I would recommend downloading these files often. Now, I did this as a practice run, messed up my recording, but you can see the naming convention I've got there. Agnes Blackmore Fry, née Barnes, 1911 census. Okay. Yeah, well, I will on this occasion. But just make sure you've got the files downloaded, because as soon as your subscription is gone, you can't get it. You can't access these files from Ancestry, although you can access quite a lot, but you can't access these files. Okay, let's download this one then. Okay, and you'll see again, I've already done this on my practice run, but naming convention I find a bit hard. If you've got any tips, please do share them in the comments to help everyone. But I generally go for names, surnames, place and years. Outside of this, I do save them to my folder structure for genealogy, which again I can talk about in another video. So we've got our record, and if you haven't done it already, especially if you found it through a search, you just want to make sure you save it to the person in your tree. Okay, and make sure that you select this person, right? Because if not, it'll save to someone else. But I've already got this saved. Perhaps if I've got Matilda Fry Batten, I can save her as well while I'm here. Now I can see it's a TH there, but there you go. Matilda Fry Barnes, as she was born. Ancestry having a moment. So I can actually save it to other people as well from here directly, which is helpful because it saves coming back into it. And in this case, I'm going to save it to her daughter's record. I've got the H, that's just more of a French way of spelling it, right, with the H. And I'm not worried about that slight difference. Yep, all this. And anything that is new information will be ticked for you to check and verify. And as I said, with my poor maths, but 1887, yeah, that looks about right. They've just done that calculation. It's also added these as well. So add Kevin button, and I can add these people on as we go. So that is a nice workflow that'll save you a lot of time as well. Just having a quick glance as well. Don't want to inadvertently add something. Save to your tree. Now it's gone into here, but let's just be sure. So I come back to Agnes's record, and I'll control and click on that to open in a new tab. I can see now this was my great-great-grandmother, and for some reason it hasn't got her. Oh yeah, it has. They just zoomed out. Yeah. Okay, Matilda Fry Barnes, George K. Batten. We can see then the children. Just make sure I haven't added them twice, as can happen when you do things that way. Yeah. Okay, perfect. So, what we can say about Agnes from this 1911 census then is that she was living with her daughter and son-in-law and their family and grandchildren, and she was in Ilfracombe. Now, from here, let's go and find her in the 1901 census. So check out my video on that, and I will see you there.